I want people to become part of the solution by becoming more informed. So part of the show is just listening to the story of the offender and learning from that one experience. But the more important goal of the show is to educate the community. Together we can make a difference. And I think watching the show is where it starts. Tell me about your sex crime.
Between approximately 2000 and 2002, I was collecting internet child pornography, mostly a lot of just plain nudes, and then sometimes you stumble onto what I call a real sex picture. And in 2002, they were discovered on my computer. Of course, was arrested. I was charged with 10 counts of possession of child pornography. I pled guilty to 5 counts, was sentenced to a possible 30 months, which I served 20, and was released on lifetime supervision.
How many pictures of children did they find on your computer?
There was approximately 350 pictures.
How did that end up developing in your life?
I learned to isolate. I didn't really believe that my parents were really any help in my situation, so it was kind of mind developed. So I had that isolation sort of personality.
Where were you raised?
I was raised in the state of Washington and Oregon. I remember growing up, first memories were in Oregon, and it was really pleasant. It was a very bucolic, sort of pastoral sort of setting. It was myself, my sister, and my mom and my dad, and some farm animals, and everything was all good until I had to go to school, and that was really a very difficult time for me because I really wasn't socialized. My parents really weren't any help, and I kind of blamed them for putting me in that situation. And so I sort of started developing at that point at a very early age.
When you said it was really rough getting to school, that there was a shock going to kindergarten and first grade?
First grade, I started early because I have an October birthday.
How did the other kids treat you?
Well, well, some of them were mean, some of them were just didn't care for me at all or just ignored me. And
well, the reason I like to spend a little time on it, you know, the old saying is the twig is bent, so grows the branch. Mm-hmm. I mean, those kinds of painful experiences really cast a very long shadow, I think, in our lives. People don't remember that maybe sometimes when they're looking at somebody else's life. But when we think about our own lives, most of us can remember early formative experiences that really affected the way we looked at things. So for you, the universe was not a friendly place.
No, it really wasn't.
All right. So you got into this pattern of isolating.
Right. Got a really terrible teacher. She just never tired of ridiculing me in front of the other kids, so that really made it difficult too. That it ostracized me from my peers as well. And we moved a lot, so I never really developed, you know, I always found one or two other kids that were a little bit outside like myself, and we kind of became friends, and then I'd have to move down the road and they'd be gone, and so I learned not to really attach to people.
Why did you move so much?
My dad was a shingle sawyer. He made cedar shingles that went on the roofs.
Did you finish high school?
Yes, I did. I got into some sports and was kind of actually a minor sports hero in high school.
Well, you know, you're a relatively small guy, so what kind of sports are you talking
Wrestling, about? Boxing. Did very well.
Okay.
And
can I ask you, what about the social life? You know, the whole girls thing, post-puberty, dating, that kind of thing?
Was miserable. Was absolutely miserable. I developed this thing where I attach, you know, to girls that I felt were in a status above myself, aiming high type of deal. And there was always one of these girls that came from a real polite home, and they'd treat me pretty decent, and I attached to that. But I developed where I was always after that, and it was never ended up anything, and I was never satisfied with the girls that might actually, you know, be interested in myself. And so it was just really kind of a miserable sort of situation. Really didn't have a lot of social skills, was fairly... Because of my early childhood development, I was actually fairly shy. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to put myself out there to be hurt, mm-hmm. right? So there really wasn't that, you know, positive grooming situation where you actually groom somebody to be your girlfriend, right? That never really did happen. It was always very clumsy sort of a deal.
Now, in those days, would you say that your sexual interest was mostly focused on girls your age?
Yes, yeah, it was. I developed early. I saw my sister bathing one time because we used to bathe, sponge baths by the sink, and I guess I was probably 7, 8 years old, something like that, and I became fascinated with that form. It was kind of like a fetish type of thing, and that stuck with me. And there was several other sort of things that sort of blurred my the boundary, interaction with kids in the neighborhood, not necessarily my own age, cousins.
Sexual experiences?
Yeah, some sexual, and they're fairly mild compared to a lot of stuff that I've heard, but it's just enough to kind of blur the boundaries. And I really didn't talk about this stuff because I was sort of sexually shamed.
Now, you were saying that you watching your sister getting bathed by your mom was a pivotal, very exciting event for you that has kept with you all these years. And I'm wondering about all of those mothers out there around the world watching this show right now who are thinking, oh my God, I just let my kid see me bathe his sister. I wonder if this, this problem that this guy's going through is the same thing my kid is going to be going through. So what is it about what's the difference between those billions of families out there who have seen each other bathe, have seen each other in the family nude at one time or another, but never have an issue with it, and you?
Well, I think because I had an overt fascination, and I think that they seen that as a problem, and they shamed me for it, and I think that just made it all the more provocative for me. I think that it's a natural curiosity type of a deal, I really believe, and when that's repressed, I think it can cause more harm than good.
So if those parents out there who noticed an interest and a curiosity simply shared informational books, pictures that were maybe anatomically correct but not necessarily pornographic, that could go along until the child was satisfied and his curiosity was satisfied, and then he would move on. Because we're talking about you as an 8-year-old, right?
Right, yeah, probably 7, going on 8, I think.
Yeah, so you're not even pubescent. It's not like you had
right.
At that time, a purely prurient interest in your sister.
No, it was just a fascinating form. It was just so much different than myself, so much different than... so that's what that looks like, And it was just an overt fascination there for a short period of time, and I think that had everything gone smoothly, it would have been an oh well type of a deal, but it was made an issue of, and I was made to feel bad about it.
So looking back on it from nowadays, you see that as a pivotal event, but at the time, in your teen years, back in high school, you weren't thinking of it as a pivotal event.
No, it was just something that was kind of in the background, I think, just sort of like seed waiting to germinate, I think.
What about the rest of the trajectory of your life? Were you got out of high school, and then what happened?
I joined the service. I did not want to stay around in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up there. Didn't really like the life my dad had like I had. My dad was a reasonable man. He never drank much, and he was never physically violent. He had kind of angry edge. I kind of felt, kind of just, he had... And I got that a good tool for isolating myself is a sort of a learned behavior, kind of having an angry attitude that you can display well, and this says now there's a boundary here, don't cross.
It's effective at holding people at arm's length.
Right, it is really very effective at holding at arm's length people, and I thought that my dad had that very well, and he was never physically violent, never really verbally abusive, but there was just that, you just damn well better respect.
That permanent sort of scowl.
Right,
okay.
He had that. Very serious man.
What kind of service did you go into?
I was in the Navy. I joined the Navy.
How long were you in the Navy?
Very nearly 2 years.
And then, but you left early?
Yes, I did. This is a very long story, but I got involved in drugs, and it eventually ended my service career.
This is a message for all of those who want to be a part of the solution on Tell Me About Your Sex Crime. We're interested in interviewing you. If you're a sex offender, if you're a victim, or if you're a family member of a sex offender, we would like to interview you for our show.